Greetings, fellow Planeswalkers.
I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you're listening to the newest episode of the Commander at Arms podcast. This week on the podcast, we ask the question, how has efficiency become so ingrained in Commander? But before that, we have our upkeep trigger to do here, Paul. And we want to thank all of our patrons for your support. If you want to become a patron and support the show directly and help us add more content to your eyes and your ears, you can do that at patreon.com/commanderatarms. All right, we have Mail Day and interesting finds up next, Paul. Have you bought/found anything interesting this week?
I actually had an unexpected mail day because WotC just sent me a pack. No, I'm joking.
I wish that was true. I wish it was like, yeah, WotC just sent me a pack because why not? Like, they were like, oh, I think you need something cool and fun to open for the show.
No package from WotC, but I did have a couple interesting things. Me and James and our friend Ross went to my LGS on Thursday. We did that a couple weeks ago as well. And I don't like to leave the store without buying something. Anything, doesn't matter what it is. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll buy a pack of Modern Horizons 2. Maybe I'll get lucky. I was going through the pack and I was like, I don't even remember what's the value in here. And then James, he was like, is that a land in the back? And I was like, oh wait, the fetch lands are in here, aren't they? And sure enough, it was a Verdant Catacomb sitting in the back of that pack. So that was pretty cool. Just a friendly reminder, go support your LGS if and when you can.
100%.
But I did actually have an unexpected mail day. A friend of mine, one of our patrons actually, who he is named Tino. It's a good friend of mine from New York. And he loves to troll me. And he's like, hey, dude, just sent you, you should be expecting something in the mail from a TCG player from me. And I was like, what? Why? What did you get me? And he sent me a screenshot of the order. And it said 25 foil Pima Outriders, which is an uncommon from Kaladesh. I was like, okay, all right. I don't know what I'll do with this, but I'll make something happen. And I should have known better because he's also a pretty big tech guy, and he just edited the page to make it look like he actually ordered 25 Pima Outriders. But what he actually got me was a foil Dramatic Reversal, which I have to put somewhere. I know I have Drama Scepter somewhere, so I'll slide it in there in Tino's name. So thank you, Tino. Much appreciated.
Man, I wish someone would send me a foil Dramatic Reversal. I have ISO Rev in a couple of my decks, and the only time I've ever gotten to use ISO Rev was once. Otherwise, it just doesn't come up as much as I thought it was going to. Cool card, man. Yeah, thanks, Tino. That's awesome. So I haven't done anything interesting mail-wise or anything. I still think the last thing that I got was probably the foil Harmonic Prodigy, which just came up again in conversation today when I played Magic with my friend in Australia. We played over Cockatrice because he was like, hey, let's play some Magic. And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? I'm down for that. And really no interesting finds really either. So I'm kind of kind of bummed. I mean, my collection's not as big as yours, Paul. So I'm not like, oh, what have I forgotten to look at these couple of weeks or the last 6 months or so. I mean, there's a couple boxes in this studio that I could probably kind of have a look at and maybe find something cool for next week. I don't know.
That actually reminds me. I was also playing Magic last night with a few close friends of mine down here. The first play group I had actually when I moved down here. And we have a friend who, because he goes through his cards and so much for decks and stuff, he kind of just puts everything in boxes. And last night I was actually going through them and I was categorizing the cards for him. I was basically like pulling anything that was like $5 or more, and I was pulling it to the front just so that he knew what was in there. And I came across like, I want to say like 8 to 10 copies of Grafted Exoskeleton. He had an Archfiend of Despair in there. He had 2 Pearl Medallions. He had like 7 or 8 Skull Clamps. He had a couple like Blood Artists. Just like a lot of insane stuff that I was not expecting. And it made me wonder, it makes me want to go through my own collection and do the same thing. But I don't know. It's more boring when I do it for myself, you know? It's more exciting when I do it for other people.
No, that's it. I'm coming over for one weekend, and we're gonna go through your cards and see what's going on. Because
That's a lot of
I'll be more
cards.
excited to do it than you are.
That's a
But
lot
I'll be
of
like,
cards.
Paul, look what you got. Yeah, but we'll we'll crack a few brews and we'll put on some sweet tunes and we'll just sort through cards for the weekend. Sounds like a good old time, man.
Was it you that found that flooded strand in one of my old standard decks?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay, that was somebody else. All right.
I remember we did
whatever.
go through some of your collection to find some stuff that I needed, and you were like, "Man, I didn't even know I even had this card."
Yeah, it happens, man. You get so many cards that eventually, you just have piles and piles and piles.
Man, do I know that. I have piles of currently standard legal cards in the little cube next to me, and that's because I've cracked a lot of standard sets, AFR, Kaldheim, Commander Legends, which I know is not a standard set, so don't even at me on Twitter. I know it's not a standard set, but it came out this year, so I have opened a lot of stuff, a lot of sealed product this year. But moving on, let's jump to the next part of our upkeep trigger here, and that is to plug our newest video. That is Ebon Death Draco Lich. It is a mono black control deck that we actually put together for one of our friends. He was interested in getting back into Commander and said that he wanted to build a mono black deck. So Paul went ahead and built the deck for him, and I teched it for the YouTube channel. So if you want to go and check that one out, the description, the link will be in the description below. If you are watching this on YouTube, go and check that one out as well. It is youtube.com/commanderatarms. You can find all of our other deck techs, other podcast episodes, and some unboxings there as well. And we are getting into gameplay. That is a promise. It is a promise we've said every week, and we are getting into it.
Yeah, there's more logistics in it than one might think on first inspection.
Yeah, unfortunately, but we're going to get into it because I cannot wait to be able to share our play of the weeks either on a stream or on a video with people, which kind of pushing into that, we have our play of the week, Paul. So, you and I got to play Magic on Friday with my mates down under in Australia, Michael and Barry. They're my best mates. I've known them since, one of them I've known since since preschool. So since we were 5, and the other one I met in year 5. In primary school, and we got to play that game. I played Calamax, taking Calamax to the max, which is the list that we did up for the podcast. You played Mono White Elish Norn. Michael was playing his Rakdos Madness Angie Falconwrath deck, which I think we've mentioned before on the podcast, and Barry was playing the brand new Auras of Courage Precon Galea Kindler of Hope, which is the Bant equipments / aura Banchantment deck, which was really fun to see kind of pop off in a really glorious fashion, essentially. He got to do a lot more stuff with it than I did. He did upgrade it a little bit than I'd got to because we were playing precons against precons, and it was just really cool to see that deck go off the way that I wanted it to when I played it. But yeah, Calamax just came out victorious that game with a one hell of a stack that we had to resolve, Paul.
Yeah, I want to say that stack was like 9 cards / abilities deep.
Yeah, because it started by you playing Day of Judgment as a board wipe to get rid of a lot of the problem creatures on the field, which for me was Calamax, Veyron Voice of Duality, Gutter Snipe, and Seedborn Muse. And then Barry had, was it Sanctifier Invec? To hose all of the black and red cards, which just stopped Michael from playing Magic, which, one, I was totally cool with, because I've seen his Rakdos Angie Falconwrath Madness deck go off before, and it does go off, and goes off quite well. So that was kind of funny to see that one. And then, what did you have? You had Mother of Runes or Giver of Runes, and Verge Rangers?
I had Giver of Runes, Verge Rangers, and something else that I cannot remember.
Fair.
Oh, it was Mirran Crusader.
That's it. So yeah, pretty much you wanted to wipe the board, and I said something. I think, what was it? I snapped to snap stuff back to my hand.
Yeah.
And then Michael jumped in there with some removal spells. Instead of letting me snap my stuff back to my hand, I then had to counter that. Sorry, he deflecting swatted one of the snaps to something else, and then I countered his spell the board wipe and something else that you had cast, Paul.
I had cast. I always forget the name of it, but the white free spell, the white fierce guardianship.
Oh, flawless maneuver.
There you go. That's the one.
Yeah. I counted all that stuff with rewind, so I got to untap 4 lands upon resolution of that. And because I had Kalamax was tapped, and I had Vayrun Voice of Duality with a Swarm Intelligence. Sorry, no, I didn't even have Kalamax on the field. Sorry, this was all just with Vayrun Voice of Duality, Swarm Intelligence, and Twinning Staff. I got to get it plus 3 copies on the field, on the stack. So I was able to then keep just floating stuff, and then it was a Frantic Search on top of that, so we resolved the Frantic Search, and there was more removal and everything. It was just mad stack. I think by the end of it, everyone was taking like 12 damage from my Gutter Snipe. Yeah, it was really, really cool to see Kalamax go off in a way that it hasn't gone off before, and kind of show me that it doesn't need to be a Storm list for Kalamax to be fun. Because he is just incredibly powerful by himself, which is why he gets removed a lot. And it makes me mad because I just like playing my commander, and I think they like to play kind of fun commander, but then realizing that maybe spending 40 minutes resolving the stack.
Yeah, it I don't know if it was 40 minutes, but it took quite a while. And I was so far behind at that point that I was just trying to end my turn, and I literally could not pass turn because we were still resolving the stack.
Yeah, my bad. I apologize for that one. But the game ended pretty quick after that. It got down to where I got Niv Mizzet on the board and was able to then just start drawing cards and pinging people to death. So, and then at the end of it, it was just Paul and I, and Paul said, I got nothing. And he went, I'm going to bed. And it's like, all right, cool, man. It was good playing with you. I will catch you next time. So that was my play of the week. It was really fun. It was really cool. And I love Kalamax, and I want to play it again in another pod that's very similar to the power level of that pod, because that power level was perfect. But let's... Yeah?
Yeah, I was just going to say I have a very brief play of the week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you got to play Magic last night, so... Yeah,
I was playing last night. We were playing a higher powered pod. My friend John was playing Alesha combo. My friend Chad was playing Locust God, and my friend Alex was playing... I think he was playing Galazeth Prismari at the time. Yeah, Galazeth Prismari. And I was playing Marisol. And I went to cast Marisol on turn 4. I had 5 mana up because I had Aetherling in my hand and I wanted to activate it. So I cast Marisol, and Alex says, yeah, I'll counter it, Force of Will. And I was casting as a blocker because John had a Master Cruelties on board. And because I did not have a blocker, I dropped to 1 life point on John's turn. And then I died to Chad's Rhystic Study trigger because he had a Psychosis Crawler out. And that was I basically had 3 draw steps that game and then died. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, I was like, how do you die to a Rhystic Study trigger? Not realizing Psychosis Crawler is a very prevalent win con in most decks.
Yeah, that was cool.
Kind of similar to the turn 3 Turgid win that I had. Anyway, moving on from that one. We're about 15 minutes into this podcast, and we have a full main phase 1 and main phase 2 to get through. So let's move on to our main phase 1 here, Paul. Let's let our floating mana dissolve and kind of get on with playing the rest of our spells from our hand. So we're talking about efficiency and Commander as a whole as a format. So we jotted down a couple of questions here that we're going to try and answer here on the podcast today. And if you want to continue this conversation, you can do it at on Twitter. The description, or the link will be in the description below, and you know how to get at us on Twitter. Go and follow us on there. So, Paul, I'm going to ask you this very quick question that you're going to have a mad, complicated time explaining, but how has Commander transitioned from fun and flashy to quick and hyper efficient?
All right. So, just to give a personal anecdote for my own experience with this particular scenario, when I started playing Commander, which was pretty much when Wizards started to first notice it, which is back in 2011. No, I'm sorry, 2013 or so, 2014. One of the best mana rocks in the game, you had Gilded Lotus, which was like a $15, $20 card at the time, and you had Darksteel Ingot, which is a 3 mana indestructible artifact. And I think also Coalition Relic was a pretty popular one, which was also pretty expensive at the time. I want to say like $10 to $15. And now we have Arcane Signet. We have like pretty much every mana rock now is about 2 mana. We have is there one that I'm missing? Is there another Signet or something that's come out? I feel like there is, and I'm forgetting about it.
No, Arcane Signet's probably the newest Signet to come out besides like all of the 10 guild Signets.
Oh, we just had 3 visits reprinted.
Yeah.
Like there's just everybody has access to faster ramp now, and cards like Warm Power Stone, Mind Stone, they just typically don't make the cut anymore. Now it's all about like Arcane Signet. You get your Fell War Stone in there. You get if you're in green, you have like Utopia Sprawl, and that's where your ramp is because the 3 mana stuff is just too slow now. But basically, like the way that the community sees these cards and determines which one they want to put in their deck is purely on this one is just better than this one. Like Arcane Signet is just better than Mind Stone, or Rakdos Signet is better than Darksteel Ingot. And not to mention that it's also affected a lot by availability, like when WotC chooses to print or reprint cards. And personally speaking, I'm part of a EDH group on Facebook, and one of the first questions I see people ask when they're building a new deck is, all right, what are the must-have combos? Whereas it used to be like, all right, what cards synergize with this commander? And while some people do still ask what are the synergies, I see the combo lines a lot more often. People will say like, oh, you gotta have this. It goes infinite in like 1 turn. It's a 2-card combo. And it's just weird to me, having, grown with the format pretty much since it started becoming popular, that in a format that, once prized itself on going back into Magic's history and looking for those little like hidden gems that synergize with the newer cards, to kind of make this amalgamation of a format where you have the old and the new blended together in one, in harmony. We're now looking forward to whatever the next like Arcane Signet is, or the next best combo piece. Like, what's the next Torment of Hailfire? What is my next best Stormwind con, or whatever the case may be.
I feel like we just got the new Torment of Hailfire with the flip side of Turgid, right?
Yes, but in most cases, Turgid herself is just enough.
Oh, yeah. You don't even... like, Turgid doesn't even need a flip side for her to be, like, ridiculously good. Going back to, like, the combo part that you were talking about, I've noticed that people, when they start building decks these days, is they'll just add combos in those colors, even if it has nothing to do with the direction that their deck wants to be built. It's just because it's like, oh, how many infinite combos can I fit in a Rakdos deck? Or how many can I fit into this Golgari deck? Like if you're playing, so it doesn't matter what it is, like if you're playing mono blue or anything with blue in it, well, you have to have ISO Rev, you have to have, Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal with 1 mana rock or 2 mana rocks to go infinite. Like that just makes infinite mana. Like no matter what you're doing, that has to happen, right? And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like, it's cool to have infinite combos in the game to finish the game, but kind of like sticking to the synergies is what I want Commander to go back to, is how I want Commander to continue to being a format. If we just add combo into combo into combo, yes, combo has its own place, and we know that, it's seeming that everybody is losing the word synergy in their Commander vocabulary and changing it with combo. So if anything interacts with each other, they're like, oh, that's a combo. And it's like, well, no, it's actually just a synergy. And that's what we need to get back into, is just having a board state that synergizes with itself to create what your Commander wants it to do.
Yeah, just to clarify, like James said, combos themselves aren't inherently evil. Like the time-old saying is the game has to end at some point, which is true. But a combo should be something that, like, after you've built the deck, you look at the deck, and if the first statement out of your mouth is, oh crap, I have no way to win, yeah, sure, maybe throw a combo in there just so that you have at least something to do so that the game doesn't take, 6 hours or whatever. But it shouldn't be like, okay, I'm building green-blue. Like, I gotta have, like James said, Dramatic Scepter. I've gotta have Aetherflux Reservoir. I've got to have Deadeye Navigator, Peregrine Drake, or Palinchron. Like those should be the afterthoughts. You know, if they happen to synergize with your commander, that's cool and all. Like I play Deadeye Navigator and Peregrine Drake in Brago, but like those are cards that I would play anyway. So they're in there, and just by pure coincidence, they happen to make infinite mana.
Yeah, and sometimes that infinite mana makes another person win. As we saw in one of our other games. But anyway, that's all we're really getting at here is it seems that when Wizards print more and more cards, they're kind of outclassing the older cards, really. You know what I mean? They're just making strictly better upgrades to certain things. And they're really making commander decks become more efficient because they're lowering the curve and they're lowering the mana value of what seemed to be, they used to be 5, 6 cost cards. Now they're 4 cost cards. And like Paul said about ramp, like I remember even when I started, Paul, like, Commander Sphere, Darksteel Ingot is actually one that I haven't heard of in 18 months. I forgot that was even a card because it's a 3 mana rock that taps for 1 colorless. So it's kind of like now when I build a deck, it's, you look at Soul Rings, Arcane Signet, even the 10 Guild Signets first before you do anything else. And Mindstone's still in there for me as well. Because, I still find Mindstone's a really good card. It's a 2 mana rock. You've got Ornithopter of Paradise as well, as I see as just a smaller little brother to Arcane Signet. People don't see it that way, but I see it as it helps mana fix most decks. Because it is in colorless, and it is just one of those, it's essentially, you don't get the mana straight away, you get the mana after a turn. But most of the times when you're casting a turn 2 Mindstone or a turn 2 Fellwar Stone, you're not using that rock straight away anyway, so why not play the Ornithopter of Paradise as well, because it gives you 1 extra mana. It gives you 1 extra mana on your next turn, and it's also any color of mana.
Thran Dynamo is another example. Like that card used to be everywhere. That was ramp. That was what ramp looked like.
That was a card that I was searching for so long for my Durati deck that it was like, this is a card I'm never going to get. And then all of a sudden, like, we go flash forward to 2018, and we get the 2019 decks that came out. And it came out in not Sidisi. It was Cadena, the Slinking Sorcerer, and it had Thran Dynamo in it. I went, that's a card that I need for my artifact deck, and that's how I ended up getting my copy of Thran Dynamo, because when I was looking at it, when I first started wanting to build my mono red artifacts deck, it was like $25-$30 for a 4 mana taps for 3 colorless. I was shocked when I saw the price of that card. Alright, Paul, so after that, do you think Commander really is the same format that it used to be when it started?
I think it's pretty easy to see that while the integrity of Commander as a format, the intentions of Commander as a format are the same, which means that you get together with your friends and you have fun. I think the integrity of the format is really what's being called into question here. And by that, I mean, as opposed to wanting to resolve a spell like the Great Aurora, which is one of my favorite spells to cast in Commander, we're becoming more and more akin to like Modern and Legacy, to the point where we like a lot of pods are essentially 100 card singleton Modern and Legacy, where you basically just have some more like streamlined decks. They're all based around maybe like a combo or 2, or they intend on just building a bunch of mana, and then their win con is, like I said earlier, like Torment to Hailfire, maybe an Aetherflux Reservoir, and then a lot of the cards in the deck, as opposed to being maybe synergistic with the commander, which some of them will probably still be, a lot of them basically support like getting to that combo or that win con. A lot of decks now have like Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, Gamble, Demonic Tutor. Some decks even run like Mastermind's Acquisition, Diabolic Tutor, Diabolic Intent, Grim Tutor, Cruel Tutor. If you are so lucky as to have a copy of Imperial Seal, there's also that as an option. But yeah, like I can't. It's hard for me to join a random pod now without being scared. Like, oh my god, this guy's gonna go infinite on turn 4. You know, it's losing its casual setting, its casual feeling, where I could just sit down with 3 other people and get excited about casting my 6, 7, 8 drop spells, and not have to worry about, oh my god, this guy's got 7 mana on turn 3. He's about to go infinite, which happens, more often than I care to admit.
Now, I'm just going to quickly cut in there, Paul, and I'm going to flash back to, oh man, was it last week at Windows when you played Mono Green Setting?
Yes.
And what happened in that game, Paul?
That doesn't happen often, though.
So what I'm referring to here is, I pulled out Tulane because I like to play Tulane, and I don't want to play it because it is speedy, it is fast, it wins, it's combo, yada yada yada. I play it because, one, it's fun. Well, I mean, it's fun. It's my kind of fun. I like to draw cards and put lands on the field. I like to draw cards. Just drawing cards is what I like to do. And it's banned, so it's in the colors that I love as well. So I just like playing it for the sake of playing it. And Paul goes, well, if we're playing at that level, then let me pull out Setting. And I went, sure, no worries. You had 27 mana on turn 4?
Okay. But like I said, that doesn't happen often. Me and James both started off with a Leyline. James had Leyline of Anticipation. I had Leyline of Abundance, which, I can tap my Druids for 2 green instead of 1. And I had a turn 3, I forgot, what's that thing's name? The tree dude. Nyxbloom Ancient. I had turn 3 Nyxbloom Ancient, and then turn 4, I cast a...
Genesis Wave?
Genesis Wave for...
X equals 20.
I think it was 23 or something like that. I can't remember.
No, you had 23 mana, and you cast it for X equaled 20. X equaled 20. I remember that part quite clearly, because you would count... I helped you count to 20.
Yes, and I got a Nykthos out of it, and a bunch of green stuff, and I was able to pretty much win from there, because I had 60, 70, 80-something mana. So that was pretty cool. But again, that doesn't happen often. So that was a niche scenario.
Yeah, but what I was trying to get at is that was just from a synergy part of your deck. You built that way so everything kind of synergizes with each other. It all kind of works the way that you wanted it to.
Yeah, there are no combos in Setting.
So you just won out of straight outvaluing the rest of the table, which is totally fine in mono green. That was just a kind of a throwback to our last little question here in main phase 1.
Yeah, which I guess actually that could have been a play of the week. So.
It actually could have been, because it was technically in the last week of playing Magic.
Yeah.
But it's more when you get into decks that are people who build decks in Commander who are well, I just grabbed this legacy list and put, 10 more cards around it that are going to support the rest of this strategy, and that's all I want to do is I just want to play legacy elves. Or, I mean, you and I have dabbled in Legacy a little bit in this last couple of 2 weeks because we just, not so much wanting to get out of Commander, but just, kind of taking a small side step away from Commander for a little bit to kind of clear our heads to be able to come back and do more Commander content for you guys. But we kind of got into Legacy because I was looking at Modern because, Modern Horizons 2 had just come out, and I was... digesting a decent amount of Modern content, and Paul's like, we'll just try Legacy instead because I think you'll like that more. And we started playing Legacy, and I started looking more at Legacy and everything, and I'm starting to see cards and interactions of people playing Commander all the time. And there's strategies that people play in Commander that come out in Legacy, I was playing Storm in Legacy, and I mean, Storm is huge in Commander, and I'm not saying don't play Storm or anything, but it's that kind of... I guess it's just all of the, the Golgari, not Golgari, sorry, it's all the Izzet spell slinging decks that want to do what Legacy Storm does, and does really well.
Well, I would say that's pretty much what Commander was supposed to be, right? When you have access to all those cards, it at some point is going to start to look a lot like Legacy, because cards that are powerful there are obviously going to be powerful for us as well. I think it's more so of the mindset that is causing this rift to form, or I guess causing it to disappear, basically. Where if you play Commander as competitively as you play like Legacy or Modern, then, you're kind of tapping into a mindset that we don't usually apply in Commander, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, it's not a competitive format. Not every play has to be exactly on point every single time. I actually just had this example come up in one of the games I played this morning. I was playing Tulane again against my friend, and I wanted to bounce my mana dork back to my hand, and he's like, well, why don't you tap that for the mana instead, and then pull it back, you still have a mana available. And I went, doesn't really matter. Efficient, inefficient play, the end result is still the same, and I can't do anything with the mana that I had anyway, so blurg, it was just kind of like, well, the end result is I still got my mana dork back on the field. Yes, I could have had one more mana open up if what I drew wasn't a land that was going to come back down again, and what I had in my hand was going to be decently, available to me, but it wasn't, so I didn't see the point in doing it the way that he had said because of that, because I knew it was in my hand because of that fact. It was doesn't matter which route I take here, the end result will be the same. The only difference is I will have one land untapped and one land tapped. And it didn't really matter either way. Is there anything you wanted to add at the end of there, Paul?
No, I've pretty much said everything that I can say. Yeah, if I were to add anything else, I feel like I would be just reiterating the same thing over and over again.
Cool. Well, with that, we're going to pass around our combat phase now. We're going to swing in with all of our little squirrels, and we're going to hear a message from our sponsors right now. Welcome back from that ad break. We're going to get into our main phase 2 here, and we're going to continue our discussion about efficiency in Commander. So, Paul, let's jump back into this discussion with another question here. Is there a distinction anymore between casual EDH and competitive EDH?
Obviously, this is a controversial topic / question, and I phrased it that way intentionally because I want people to talk to us. BTW, you can get at us on like Twitter and YouTube if you're listening to this on YouTube. But anyway, plug aside, I think that the two are starting to blend together very much so. And here's a good example. And James, I'm going to use one of your decks as an example of this. James's Najeela deck is not CDH.
I knew it was coming. I knew Najeela was coming up.
But it's a great example of this.
It is. It really is.
James's Najeela deck is not CDH. But if you were to play against it, I would say 90% of the cards, maybe a little less than that, maybe we're talking like an 80, 85%er, are what you would play in CDH. Yeah. And, with that, there's cards like Dockside Extortionist, Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study, all cards that you see both casually and at the competitive level, just because of how unanimously good / broken they are. Dockside Extortionist in particular sees a lot of play in competitive EDH because bounce spells like Snap and Chain of Vapor, you can bounce it to your hand and it's like a ritual. But that aside, these are cards that punish people for playing the game or reward you for other people playing the game. And they're becoming just more and more popular. I have not seen a white deck yet since Smothering Tithe was printed that did not play Smothering Tithe. Seriously, I mean that 100%. I have not seen a single white deck that does not play Smothering Tithe. I don't know about you, James.
I don't want to say you're correct because I know one deck that doesn't run Smothering Tithe that has white in it.
Is it mine?
No, it's mine.
Oh.
It's, to mention him again, it's Tulane.
Fair enough.
But because it's not needed in the deck, it was replaced with a Mana Dork, which was better synergy for the deck.
But do you play Rhystic Study?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Love Rhystic Study. I love Rhystic Study, but I don't believe Rhystic Study belongs in every single blue deck.
But that's the thing. Why wouldn't you play Rhystic Study?
Because of the amount of card draw it gives and the amount of value that it can possibly generate you over the game. I feel like in a casual kind of get together with your friends and play a board game version of Commander, it runs away with the game way too quickly for 3 mana.
Yeah, or Smothering Tithe on 4. Dockside Extortionist is basically, most of the time, it's going to be, even if you play it on turn 2, it'll probably get you about 3 treasures most of the time, just because of how popular mana rocks are, especially 2 mana ones in Commander. And, games are just accelerating much more quickly than they used to because, A, more people have access to these cards. Smothering Tithe is a newer card. It's expensive now, but it wasn't at the time that it was printed. Dockside Extortionist was printed in a pre-con. Again, less accessible now, but it was pretty accessible back then. Rhystic Study, older card, but it's seen a couple reprints. I know it got reprinted like Mystery Boosters, which just got re-released. It got printed in Jumpstart. And, as more and more people get these things, you're going to see them more and more and more. And what's interesting, I didn't even think about this, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, is that on MTGO, Magic the Gathering Online, there was a digital-only set called Vintage Masters. And a lot of powerful cards got printed in there, not the least of which was the original ABUR Dual Lands and Mana Crypt. And a lot of people back then, when that first happened, were complaining that, like, oh, everybody's deck has Mana Crypt now. Everybody's deck has these dual lands, and just like decks are way too powerful now. And back then, I thought that was a bunch of malarkey. Like, I didn't know what the big deal was. But now we're in 2021, and it's not just the Mana Crypts that are that's an issue. Now it's literally like pretty much every card that comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm waiting to see another reprint of Rhystic Study to happen again. The Mystery Booster one, I say would be kind of hard to get, but I know a certain someone that we both know had pulled 2 of them out of his Mystery Boosters, and he pulled it out of Jumpstart, and I thought that was still kind of hard to get, but he pulled 2 of them out of Jumpstart, and I believe he pulled something also really good out of Mystery Boosters as well. I think it was like a Teferi's Protection, which, again, like, needed more reprints, but we're also seeing reprints coming in unfamiliar and unusual ways, as in, like, secret layers with different art, which I guess isn't a bad thing because it is adding more versions of the cards out there, and people get more access to it, but that also then is the flip side. Like Paul said, then everybody has access to those cards, and they're putting it in every single deck that they build. It's becoming I'm building X commander, here are these cards that go into it. So there is that fine line between what was casual EDH and competitive EDH, whereas a lot of the cards are starting to overlap because of how well mana costed they are, how efficiently they do what they want to be doing, and when they when they print new cards of that same ability, they're adding extra stuff to it. And that's something we're going to get into on the next question, kind of giving you a little bit of a trail to follow us along there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay to just go straight into the next topic because I don't really have much else to say here.
All right, so I'll ask you this then, Paul. How has Wizards dipping their hands into the proverbial cookie jar affected the way we play Commander?
I was not a part of Commander when it was EDH, the actual, like, you played the Elder Dragons and so on and so forth. I came onto it when it had started getting popular, which, like I said, was around 2013 or so. For those of you who don't know, the first Commander set released by Wizards was in 2011, and then they did like Commander's Arsenal, and then Mark Rosewater was like, hey, we're probably going to release a new Commander thing every year. Anyway, a little bit of backstory there. But yeah, so I started playing around 2013, and at that point, there was a very finite amount of cards that were printed specifically for Commander. As a matter of fact, at that point, it was pretty much just the Commander 2011 decks and the Commander 2013 decks, which, obviously is a rather small card pool, especially considering that a lot of them were reprints with only a few new cards dispersed between each deck. And even then, like, some of the cards that were printed weren't really that good, so they didn't actually see too much play. But nowadays, we get, this year alone, and we're just over halfway through the year, Two-thirds actually. We've had how many commander decks? Six commander decks, right? I think that's correct. 4 with Strixhaven. Or have we had 8? 4 with Strixhaven.
Wait, what was the first set this year?
Kaldheim. 2 with Kaldheim. 4 with Strixhaven.
We had 2 in Kaldheim, 2 in Zendikar Rising, 2 in Commander Legends, 4 in D&D, and then that's it. Oh, and the 4... No, that was it. Yeah, the 4 D&D ones were the this year's Commander decks, right? They were the M21 decks.
Well, no, I thought that was the 4 that came with Strixhaven.
Oh, it was the ones that came with Strixhaven. So yeah, I forgot the Strixhaven ones.
So we've had 10. I think 10. Zendikar Rising was last year.
No, Zendikar Rising was this year.
Holy smokes, so we've had 12.
Yeah, because Kaldheim was the first set of this year.
Yeah.
And then it was Kaldheim, Zendikar Rising, Strixhaven, and then D&D.
Yeah, so 12 commander decks this year alone.
D&D, 2, 4, 12, 13, 14, because you can't forget the 2 that came with the Commander Legends. We had Wylath and Coma. Not Coma. Wylath and...
Was that this year?
That was... Yeah. Oh, no, was that last year?
Man,
we have so much product that I don't even know what was this year and what was last year.
I'm going to say 12. I think Commander Legends was last year. I think that was around December or so.
Yeah. I'm going to go with you on that one because I'm pretty sure... Yeah, no, Commander Legends was last year.
At any rate.
God, that was so long ago.
12 commander decks this year alone, not even including last year. We're 2/3 of the way through this year, 2021. We've had 12 commander decks alone, not even including the cards that are printed in the set, in the normal sets. Not even including the sets that have been printed specifically for commander/older formats, like Modern Horizons 2, Modern Horizons 1, Commander Legends. You know? We're getting more and more support from Wizards directly, which can be both good and bad. In this case, their support comes at the cost of us getting a lot of new cards, some of which just completely outclass older cards. The most recent example of this, as a matter of fact, is coming, not even out yet, but there's a card called Consider coming out in the Innistrad Midnight Hunt set, I believe it's called. And a lot of people are comparing this to Opt, which, is the closest thing that you have to it. They're both 1-mana cantrips. They both let you see a card and then draw. But Consider lets you dump the card into the graveyard as opposed to putting it to the bottom of your library. So it can get rid of a land that you definitely don't need now or later. You can use it to fuel like graveyard stuff, delve. A lot of people are talking about it being like the one card that Doomsday needed to set up the perfect 5 cards, because you can go like Thought Scour into a Consider, right? Because Thought Scour mills 2, then Consider mills the last one, or you can draw the last one. I don't know. I don't play Doomsday, so I can't speak to the specifics of that. But like a lot of people are just like, yeah, this is just a better Opt, and honestly, it probably is. Well, I don't like to completely...
It wasn't even just people saying that, Paul. That was Sheldon Menery who came out saying that.
Well, Sheldon Menery is classified as people.
No, he is, but I'm saying, like... Sheldon was the one that brought this to my attention, because he wrote an article recently about, like, managing card fatigue, and what kind of sparked this conversation for me was... when he did mention that the 3 cards that he said strict upgrades, play with Fire, Consider, and Infernal Grasp are just completely straight 100% upgrades from Shock, Opt, and Doomblade.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there are arguments for one or the other, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, they are just strictly better. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, you have to print newer, better cards to progress the game. If nothing ever changed, then the game would just be the same thing forever and ever and ever. Like, if we were playing Grey Ogres today, which is 2 and a red for a 2/2 from like Alpha Beta Unlimited, the game probably wouldn't be that interesting, right? Like, really, who wants to play 3-mana 2/2 bears?
Not me.
Ayola cares about 3 mana, 3/2 bears.
Who?
Ayola?
Oh, the Queen of Bears. Right.
Yeah, the Queen of Bears.
Yeah.
She cares about bears. Doesn't matter if they've got no text on them. She cares about bears.
Right, but even Ayula herself, ironically enough, lots of text on that card, huh? For a card that cares about vanilla creatures.
Yeah, because it has to make the vanilla creatures good. Otherwise, who wants to play the vanilla creatures? Like, that'd just be like, I don't remember ever playing outside of like when I first started playing, these cards that were like 4 mana 2/2s and stuff with nothing on them. And you're like, this is a sweet creature. Like, this is massive. Ha ha ha. I look at something now. I'm like, damn, that was such a bad card. But I thought that was an absolute house at the time. So I understand like essentially this question comes down to like power creep and card creep. Yes, we're always going to see cards become more powerful than other cards and kind of outclassing our the older cards we used to love playing with. Like, we've talked about it before on the podcast about removal and how kind of removal's evolved into what we see it now, considering, than what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even like 18 months ago kind of thing. That's evolved a lot. Card draw has also evolved a lot. I mean, the last 18 months, we've gotten some white card draw in there. We've gotten more ways. Red's been able to draw cards with, what do they call it, Paul? When they exile and you can play it.
Impulse.
Yeah. So Red's been given a lot of support with impulse drawing as well. And I coined the term last week on the episode, political card draw for white, and I'm going ahead with that because I think that's what the way white is going to do card draw flavorfully, because that was one issue that they had with white, was trying to figure out how they were going to do it flavorfully, and I think they've kind of addressed it that way. But just saying that, like, I still like Opt, and I'm still going to play Opt in all of my decks, so I don't see why these two cards can't coincide in one deck together. That it comes down to redundancy kind of thing. Like, I want to play cantrips in Calamax, so now that I have access to Opt and I have access to Consider, I'm pulling something out so that I can play Consider in there now as well.
Right, but I think it's more so for those decks that, the 99 is extremely tight, and if you have to pick a card to replace with Consider, it's gonna be Opt, just because it is just like that 1% better,
You mean Consider's 1% better, right?
Yes.
Yes. I knew what you meant, but you got them backwards. Doesn't matter. That's how similar those two cards are. All right. We have one last question here to kind of see us out for the week, and that is, what's changed about Commander since its first emergence into the scene in 2011?
Just to clarify, you guys obviously can't see our script here, but I do have quotes around first because Commander obviously didn't first take form in 2011, but as we know it, it started becoming popular in 2011. But to answer this question, you can't really answer that question, at least not in like a podcast environment or any media, really. This is something that like is a lot easier to answer face to face when you're talking to somebody. But the TLDR is that everything has changed, literally everything. The player base, the cards, even Wizards of the Coast itself has changed in terms of like the people that work there, the staff, and their methodology behind printing cards and what and they choose to print and when. Like for example, Gavin Verhey is literally constantly on Twitter looking for suggestions that people have for cards to print. I know I actually was just on there on Twitter earlier today. I saw he was like, yeah, I'm always looking for recommendations by people for what cards we should give the retro border treatment to. I, of course, put in a vote for Marisol. But that aside, like even how much they listen to us, the players, has changed, which is a good thing, in case you weren't aware. But, the one thing that has not changed is our ability to speak up and let our opinions be known. And that is primarily what this episode was intended to be about, was just me and James, putting our voice out there.
And if you want your voice to be heard from us, by us, and we can kind of continue this discussion and this conversation with you, you can do that at Twitter or on Instagram at CMDR@arms. You can find this on there. We're always on there. I mean, I'm always checking Twitter, and so is Paul. If you want to check out our YouTube channel, you can do that at youtube.com/commanderatarms, where we do all of our deck techs, our unboxings, and this podcast goes there as well. If you want to buy cards online, support your local game store, and have them shipped to your house directly, and helping us in turn as well, you can do that through our TCG affiliate link, and that is tcgplayer.com/commanderatarms. We also have our merch shirt in the show notes below. Go check that one out. And I want to thank all the patrons again. Everyone gets a first episode shout out by name, and if you want to contribute and help support the channel and help support the show, you can do that directly at patreon.com/commanderatarms. Paul, you know what you do.
Thank you to everybody for listening. Even if this is the first and last episode you ever have or ever will listen to, me and James thoroughly appreciate you taking the time to do so. It means a lot to us. We put a lot of heart and hard work into these episodes, especially James. He takes care of all the editing and stuff. So thank you, James, for doing that.
My pleasure.
But it does mean a lot to us that you take the time to actually, hear us out and, engage with us. Speaking of engaging, if you are listening to this on YouTube, please leave a comment down below, like the video if you can, and please feel free to check out any of our other videos. At the time of recording, Tiamat is very close to 1,000 views. Just needs a few more till we can get there, and I know that would make James very happy.
I would greatly appreciate that. I loved that deck. I loved making that deck, and I'm doing a live pickup right now, and we are at 999 views at the time of recording. So please, someone go out there and be our 1,000th view.
Feel free to check out all of our other deck techs too. I'm pretty sure we haven't done any two that have been even remotely similar yet, so you got a lot of variety there. I think James has them in a playlist on YouTube, so
Sure
you can
do.
just go through on your own time whenever you find the opportunity to do so. Also, feel free to share our names with your playgroups or your friends who play Magic. Take to Facebook or Twitter, just say, hey, look, I'm listening to these guys on YouTube /Spotify / wherever you're listening to your podcasts, and I think you should too. It's James and Paul from Commander at Arms. Just get our name out there. The more people we can engage with, the better, because opinions are literally what make the world go round, and we love to hear every single one of them.
And with that, I'm James.
And I'm Paul.
And you've been listening to the newest episode of the Commander at Arms podcast.
Peace.
See ya.